Greetings, everybody. Welcome once again to the RecPoker podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fredlund, and as always, we are sponsored by Running Aces, Racetrack and Casino, and this is episode 124, and this is actually a special episode. We're doing this as a off-cycle bonus episode. Normally, we release on Fridays or so every week, and we had an opportunity to sit down and chat with Robbie Strazynski, who is with Card Player Lifestyle, and he recently won the Global Poker Award for his charitable initiative. And we had the opportunity to speak with him, and with schedules and such, we just had to get it done. He's in Israel, I'm in Minnesota, and so we just kind of had to work it out. And rather than kind of putting it in the can and waiting, since I had a number of guests set up for the next several weeks, I thought, why not just throw out a bonus episode to RecPoker Nation? So that's what this is. It's going to be just the interview, so about 45 minutes. We won't have the discussion afterward, but it's just an interview with Robbie Strazynski. I do want to take the time just to mention Crazy Like a Fox. Our training is still going on. You can still enter late if you want, but we are done with 3 sessions out of the 10, and it's just been going fantastic. Great feedback, great discussion boards, great community building and learning. So really excited about that. Thanks to those of you who are out there and part of that group. I continue to get stories and stories of people that are winning and cashing tournaments who are in that, and they are giving credit already to some of the things that they've learned through the course. So that's great that there's some real world application happening right away. So I also don't have Running Aces Player of the Week updates because we just did that last time, and this is a midweek, so nothing really to report there. So I'll spare you some announcements. And with that, just get into the interview that I did with Chad McVean and also John Somsky interviewing Robbie Strazynski. So here you go. Enjoy the bonus episode. All right, guys. Well, as promised, here with Robbie Strazynski, also joined by Chad McVean. And you guys know that normally what we're doing is strategy and breaking down hands and kind of digging in. And maybe we'll get into some of that stuff. But, once in a while, we like to take a break, talk with industry folks, get some perspective of kind of the bigger picture of what's happening in the poker world. And so today is one of those days. So Robbie Strazynski, formally thank you for joining us today.
You got it. Thank you, Steve. Thanks very much for having me on the RecPoker podcast. It's a pleasure and an honor.
And you're really close to home. I mean, you're only calling us in from Israel, right?
I'm in my home, yes. I do live in Israel. I'm originally from the United States, but it certainly is significantly later hour here than it is over there. So, yeah.
Now, how long have you lived over there?
20 years, actually. September marked 20 years. I moved here in 1998. So I was, now I'm 37. So, yeah, just after high school, I came here.
Okay. Wow. Well, it's super cool. Yeah, we had to kind of organize the schedules, and I appreciate you doing that. So yeah. Why don't we just start a little bit? Well, actually, you and Chad know each other a bit, which is kind of a cool story as well. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. But talk a little bit about all the things that you're involved with, or at least some of the things that you're involved with. Everywhere I look, Robbie Strazynski name keeps popping up. What are some of the major things that you're working on or involved with now?
So wherever you look, basically what I spend most of my day doing is speaking to representatives from social media channels like Facebook and Twitter. Say, hey, can you put my name everywhere so that when Steve is looking, that's what I spend 23 out of my 24 hours a day doing.
Just becoming personally SEO, right?
Yeah, exactly. So first and foremost, what I'm involved in is trying the best I can to be a good husband to my wife, Miriam, of 16 and a half years. And I got 3 kids, Abby, Ami, and Shira. They're 11, 9, and 6.5. And, that doesn't necessarily really reach all of the channels that I'm always putting out content and stuff. But I'm very much involved in that, and thankful that I'm able to work from home and be able to spend a lot of time with them when I'm not doing work. So it's a nice balance to have, that I'm not like commuting or, spending a lot of time doing other sort of stuff. I can really be with them. So yeah, gotta give credit where it's due. What am I doing poker-wise? So yeah, I'm the founder of cardplayerlifestyle.com. Founded it together with a friend of mine in November of 2009. So we are approaching our 10-year anniversary, which is amazing to be able to say that.
Yeah.
That's its own story on its own. It's something I started off doing, very like once in a while, let's give it a shot. Let's see what this blogging thing is all about, till I found my voice and the traffic started to grow. Ended up buying out my partner after about 2.5 years, and then really starting to run with it and spending a lot more of my time, my free time, nights and weekends doing it. In March of 2017, I said, you know what, this is, I want to just go home from work every day to keep working on my site because, thankfully the traffic, the attention, all of the good metrics kept on improving. And, took the leap with my wife's blessing and said, if this is what we could do part-time, what can we do full-time? And thankfully, it's just been a really good, solid upwards trajectory since then. Very active on Twitter and Facebook, specifically trying to push the content that I'm publishing. Not just me, it's also a bunch of very talented writers and contributors who send in some great articles that we put out there, all original content. I don't do like the poker news, live reporting, news type of stuff mostly. I mean, they're just too good at it. You can't possibly compete with them, and I support them. They're wonderful, amazing people. I do more like op-eds, some strategies, tips, that sorts of articles, features, the type of stuff that, the lifestyle aspects of being a card player, the stories that are hopefully entertaining to the people who read it. That's the main thing I'm involved in. In addition, I host and co-host 2 different podcasts. I'm a co-host of the Top Pair Home Game Poker podcast, focusing similar audience to yours, actually, Steve. Also recreational players, but not necessarily the ones who are going out to the casinos and playing the 1-2 or the 3-6 limit, but home game folks. So I've been doing that for 4.5 years also, since June 2014, I guess, right? So
wow, sweet.
And the other ones I host as of the beginning of this year, January, the RecChip Poker podcast, which is more focused on strategy. Not that I'm such an expert in strategy, but I try to interview people who are. So that's a once a week thing, while the Top Pair is once every other week. Those are the main things I'm involved in. What am I forgetting? I've also got an app. I don't really talk about that too much.
Yeah, anymore. I saw that.
Yeah, it's called the Poker Notes Live app. Basically, you just download it from Google Play or the App Store, and it allows you to take notes while you're playing live poker on, what looks like a poker table on your mobile phone screen. And it's just, instead of like a pad and paper, hey, we're in the 2000s now, we ought to be like, technologically advanced in that way. And just, whatever observations you have at the table, put that down, and it'll help you become hopefully a better player if you take good enough notes and remember the types of things that you notice. Because online, that functionality has been built into the software for years and years and years. And, here's a way to do it, in live poker. It's available in a dozen languages. So yeah, those are pretty much the main things I'm involved in.
Yeah, and I saw that out there too. I saw that you had quotes from Phil Ivey, but you also had a quote from Chris Fox Wallace that he's a user, and kind of talked a little bit about using that. And he's actually somebody that we're partnered really close with and doing some training with. So I saw that. I'm like, yeah, sweet. That's another nice endorsement from Fox.
He's a really wonderful guy up in Minnesota, and now living in Las Vegas.
Right.
But credit where due, he actually is, this is back in 2013. He was he hosted a podcast called Under the Gun back in the day. And he was the first person to ever agree to interview me. And it was specifically, I was trying to go ahead and promote that app. And he was kind enough to agree. Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's have you on. No problem. And, really wonderful guy. Happy to work with him. And, he's got the iNinja Poker Tour doing very well right now. And just a really wonderful person. And, good to be partnered up with someone like Chris, for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And the other interesting thing, there's a lot of interesting things, but one thing that really stood out is that you were actually, you translated Eli Elezera's autobiography.
Of course. Oh man, okay. I attribute that to it being after midnight here in Israel. How did I forget that? Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of a big one. Eli Elezera, hopefully a future Poker Hall of Famer. He's just had a ridiculously amazing career. He produced Matan Krapka. He wrote Eli's basically autobiography after interviewing him for dozens and dozens, hundreds and hundreds of hours. Produced an autobiography in Hebrew for Eli Elezera, and I was there at the launch here in Israel, in Tel Aviv. And at the launch party, Matan and Eli took me to the side, and they're like, "Yeah, hey, we want this to be out there in the greater poker world. Everyone's, they're not all reading and speaking Hebrew, obviously. Right. Maybe help us out." So yeah, that was just an amazing thing. It took a while to do it, to find a publisher, and luckily we did. And It's an amazing project to have been involved in. It's available. It's called Pulling the Trigger. You can buy it on Amazon, both in paperback as well as in Kindle format. And yeah, I even got a little page, translator's note. So that was pretty nice to have your name on and be associated with someone just so wonderful like Ellie.
So when you think about your career, I mean, what was your first love poker, or was your first love writing, or like, how did you kind of merge this into a career? Because a lot of people are like, I'd love to be around the game, but I don't know how I could actually make a career out of it, other than playing. And you kind of formed your niche here in the media world. Yeah. Like what came first, poker or the media writing piece?
The chicken came before
the chicken egg. Yeah, that crossed the road.
Yes.
The one that, because it was stapled to the buffalo. Yeah. Or maybe I might be confusing jokes, I'm not sure.
So yeah, it's hard to sort of know what came first. I mean, I grew up in Los Angeles. It's like a 4.5 hours, drive from Las Vegas. And we used to go like for the weekends, 4, 5, 6 times a year. My parents always got those invitations in the mail, and, based on their comps play, always got like free rooms. And my dad loved playing poker. So, I was always introduced to it. I loved the Vegas lifestyle, the whole atmosphere. Back in the 1990s, 80s and 90s when I was growing up, Vegas was a lot more kid friendly and family friendly, and there were kids everywhere. Now it's much more, it's those same kids who now have disposable incomes and they'll go clubbing. But back when I was doing it, I was exposed to that lifestyle for the first time, and my dad always had his own home game, and that rotated houses all the time. So that's when I fell in love with it in a way. I always played 5-card draw with my brothers and with friends for like pennies or for nothing or whatever it was. Had a little video poker game that I was always, going around with. Okay. Even the Nintendo Game Boy, they came out with like the Caesar's Palace game, and I was always playing poker and all that, whatever it was. So I always loved poker. English, I sort of fell in love with de facto. I didn't realize that would really happen. But when I came to Israel, I was like, well, what could I do? So I know English, I guess, the language, maybe there's something in that. I went to the university. I said, what do you have available in English, here in a Hebrew speaking country? And I went to the English department. They had 2 tracks, one for literature. I'm like, well, I can go ahead and teach books, or linguistics. And I was like, oh, that seems interesting. It's the science of language. And that's what I ended up doing my degree in. I got a bachelor's and a master's degree in English linguistics, and it really appealed to me. I found the degree and the study to be very interesting. And I was like, what am I going to do with it? Well, that opens doors and careers and stuff. This is before the internet got huge. I got my degrees in 2003 and 4. So, back before blogging was, really, really big or anything like that. But I said, oh, maybe I'll be a journalist, or maybe I'll be a writer. I don't know what exactly. So that sort of developed simultaneously. And the careers that I got into were related to that. I was a textbook editor. I was a content producer for some casino sites. Also on the education front, I was helping to create materials for kids to learn mathematics, but there's language involved in that sort of thing. Right. So, and then also again on the online casino industry or online gambling type of stuff that's going on. A lot of it is headquartered here in Israel, believe it or not. And I was just producing content for them. Just they needed someone who spoke and wrote English well and understood target audience of people who want to go ahead and gamble. And I was like, well, I've got the background for that. And luckily, even though I live here in a Hebrew-speaking country, I always had a job to take, which sort of merged, to get back to your question, those interests of like the gambling, and writing and English language. And through this blog, like I said, over my time, over those few years, I sort of found my voice, understood the audience that I was writing for, and understood, hey, card player lifestyle, merging those two things, and using, whatever skills I've got in terms of English to do some writing and good interviewing, hopefully can provide some unique, good, and interesting content for people to enjoy. So it is the fusion of those two things. It's definitely a love for English and the English language, as well as the poker, and hopefully being able to put those two things together.
And one of the other things I wanted to talk a little bit about is I think you and I are similar in sort of having a charitable passion. And one of the ways that I got involved with poker at all in the casinos is I just played home games 9-10 years ago. I also run a nonprofit doing work in Rwanda. And I said, well, maybe, yeah, I've been over there a few times. Amazing. The stories I could tell. actually one of the first connections I had with a casino was deciding to run a charity tournament. We ran All In for Africa. We raised, I don't know, $60,000 or $70,000 or so, which is fantastic. But then, but that, just seeing the heart and of a lot of the players. I think some people have this perspective of poker players being degenerates and all selfish and all of these things. And I think I found this whole new crowd of people that was incredibly generous. And the reason I put that context out there is that you just won an award from the Global Poker Awards. I know you're humble about this, but for charitable initiative. And I was super inspired by that. Watched your video, and I think that's a really a tip of the cap to you and the work that you're doing. And so maybe talk a little bit about, the awards. I know the awards are nice or whatever, but maybe talk about, that process and maybe what you were doing, what you're raising money for, and if there's a way that people can still plug into that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thanks for saying that, Steve. Yeah, it's Saturday night. Literally, the awards were yesterday in Las Vegas. On Friday, I wasn't able to be there in person, but they were nice enough to allow me to sort of record a little speech to accept the thing, the award. It is a tremendous honor, and it's not being facetious to try and be humble about it. I really am, because I really do see myself in that respect as sort of a conduit. It's not really about me. I did something, but it's really everyone sort of joined together and supported this amazing cause. The cause is called Save a Child's Heart. It's a charity which operates in a sense worldwide, because it's trying to save the hearts and the lives of children who in underdeveloped countries who do not have cardiac care available to operate on and assist them with their heart diseases. So they end up getting flown here to Israel and operated on and cared for in the hospital, and also just the recovery after taking heart surgery. So that's what the fundraising is for, is to, they're a completely nonprofit organization, and they've got like a building in one of the cities near Tel Aviv. And, if the child is under 6 years old, the mother comes as well. And, they don't all speak English. Very few of them actually put any English words together. So they're, taken out of their worlds and thrown into a completely new environment, unable to communicate, but having their lives saved. It's a really amazing thing. And, and it's something I really identify with, because I sort of take it, I'm Orthodox Jewish and everything, I sort of feel like it's one of the things God commands us to do is, we're supposed to try and be a light unto the nations. This is a beautiful charity that is doing precisely that. Yeah, you're operating in Israel and Israeli hospitals, but, unto the nations, you're saving people from all over the world, from, Far East Asia, from Africa, people who unfortunately, otherwise wouldn't have hope. They'd be, these little kids. So what I did for them is I ran a charity called, a campaign called Running Well, which has a nice little poker tie-in, got to run well in life. And involved me running. Basically, I got on the treadmill and tried to run 1,000 kilometers. That's 621 miles, give or take.
Hopefully not all at once.
No,
that would be really impressive.
Here today, Steve. That's too difficult to do. I tried to do it in 10-kilometer increments, running about 6.2 miles an hour. So it's about an hour each time I got on the treadmill. And it took a year. You just got to stick with it. It's not, just like you can't win a poker tournament in the first hand or in the first level. Right. You just got to grind it out and then hopefully be there at the end. And so I said, I'm going to go ahead and donate $1 per kilometer that I run. That's $1,000 for me. And what I tried to do is get the community involved and say, hey, maybe you want to go ahead and do 5 cents a kilometer, 10 cents, 25, whatever you want to go ahead and do, or just a general donation. You want to put $20 towards the charity, that'd be great. And I set for myself a goal of trying to get $10,000 raised for this charity over the course of 2018. And, again, it's not a gigantic amount. It's not millions of dollars. And there's some amazing charity work that gets done there by other members of the poker community. And then that's sort of what also I feel like, okay, it's not really about me. This is an amazing thing to be a part of a community that places emphasis and importance on philanthropy and on fundraising, that there is an award for that within the Global Poker Awards, which is recognizing professional achievements and that sort of a thing, is an incredible thing. And to be recognized, it's really just, a big honor. So I appreciate that very much. And So yeah, how to help them, saveachildsheart.org. There's a big red donate button on the top right of the screen, and you can go ahead and donate, and it's tax deductible from whatever country you're donating from.
Well, thanks for your work on that. I mean, anytime you can hear about people trying to positively change the world, it's just so encouraging. So thanks for that. I want to make sure that so John Somsky's joined us as well. He actually writes for Anti-Up magazine. He's on the line, and Chad's also there. So I want to take a little break and open it up, see if one of those guys has any questions or comments for you.
Yeah, hi Robbie. This is John.
Hi John.
Somsky.
Nice to meet you.
I first time I heard you was actually on Fox's podcast. I was
wow.
listening to that way back in the day.
Wow, it's amazing.
Well, and just sorry, John, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. So, Robbie, just so you know, Fox always refers to John Somsky as the nicest guy in poker, which Fox and I sort of have an ongoing debate about because Somsky loves to 3-bet me. So I don't see it, but that's the context with which we're dealing right now, is that John Somsky is the nicest guy in poker. So
that's great. Nice to meet you. I love nice guys.
Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Well, anyway, I was going to say I also became a big fan. I own the Poker Notes Live app, and I've used that a couple of times.
Awesome. Thank you.
Was a big fan when you took over from Eric on the Top Pair Home Game Poker podcast.
Wow, that's an amazing thing to hear. I appreciate that very much. Thanks for saying so.
Well, yeah, just to let you know, I listen to just about every poker podcast out there.
Oh,
so
goodness.
I'm also listening to you on RecChip Poker now, of course. And I think you've done a great job there. You kind of taken it in a different tack. I mean, most of the stuff like James Split Suit Sweeney was doing was hardcore strategy. And you're bringing more of, I guess, the poker lifestyle, similar to your blog. You're bringing that, interviewing people. You just had the great interview with Jack Effel. For
Thank you.
The WSOP. So great work.
I appreciate that. And I will say also credit to Zach Shaw, former host of the podcast. He passed the torch to me. And then, when we first spoke about it towards the end of last year, this was their doing. They said, hey, Robbie, would you be interested? And we want to sort of take the podcast on to that different tack and then do a little bit more of the industry stuff, a little bit more of the lifestyle stuff. And I had been an interviewee on their podcast once upon a time. And they asked if I'd be interested, and I said, yeah, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And it's awesome. It's always awesome to hear from anyone listening or taking in the content that you produce, and to get such very sweet words of praise. I really appreciate it. If that tree falls in the forest, that you've cut it down, but it's nice to know that someone heard. So thank you very much.
I always look forward to hearing how many shekels you won in your latest.
Not enough. Never enough. But we've got a bankroll, not a budget. That's the most important thing.
Chad, did you have anything at all?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that the last couple of years, I believe, Robbie, you've been during the World Series working, and I think this year you're actually going to be able to play. So this year, will you be playing and wearing one of these lovely patches?
I love that. Where'd you get such a beautiful patch, Chad? It's so gorgeous. Thank you.
That might be the best patch I've ever seen, Chad. What does it actually say on there?
Yeah, card player lifestyle.
Nice.
Poker blog, and I believe I received that 2 years ago from Robbie.
Wow.
As we're sitting watching the 10K limit final table with Negrano and all those guys. It was a impressive lineup, and I believe that was also where Phil Hellmuth kind of had a blow up on Terrence Chan, and it was quite entertaining.
All the good stuff. All the good stuff happened. Yeah, great patch. Thank you very much for wearing it. Yes, like I said, Chad really, he also just follows a ton of the stuff that I put out, whether it's in podcast or written or newsletter form. I appreciate that very much. People couldn't pay money for the types of fan that Chad is, and it's really humbling to have someone so into the work that I produce. I appreciate it very much.
Well, you probably could pay him.
Yeah.
Thought I'd just throw that out there.
I'd have more time to do it.
A lot of money. That's an original from 2 years ago. That's the first edition.
So you are getting to play this year, though.
Yes, that is a pretty cool thing. I announced first time I've never played in a WSOP event before. And I said, you know what? I think it's time. I'm going to be playing in the $1,500 Dealer's Choice event. It's something it's kind of on my bucket list. You know, everyone's got the main event, like that sort of thing. And yeah, that'd be cool, but $10,000 is just a crap ton of money. I am fully admitting it's not all my $1,500. I'm getting staked and backed rather by some very good friends of mine who have been playing in the home games with me for many years, and it's nice. You know, it's sort of like their emissary of sorts. You know, we've been playing Dealer's Choice games forever, and we don't play it exactly like they do at WSOP. It's every single hand we change the game, and we play almost all the games no limit actually, unless there's 5 betting rounds, in which case each betting round is capped. So it's slightly different than the official Dealer's Choice of the WSOP, but those differences actually make me more comfortable. I said I'm not scared of anyone, not scared of anything, and also the fact that I'm getting backed by a lot of people and putting relatively little of my own money at risk. Hopefully, I'll be able to sort of just play my game and do my best. In a sense, it's excuse me, a bit of a free roll because, again, there's a little bit of money at stake, but I've sort of said in my mind, this is something actually that Eli Elezera told me about just playing in general. Anytime you're sort of worried, says pretend the money's already gone. So in my head, whatever I'm sort of putting out there is like, okay, the money's already gone. Let me just do the absolute best I can, and whatever else happens is gravy. And I'm looking forward to the experience. I don't know what it's like. I know, as Chad said, I've been working the last couple of years there and just walking around, and I've got my media badge, so I can walk anywhere I'd like in the back rooms or whatever. But to be sitting there and not have to move around, like I'll be sitting there hopefully for many hours for multiple days. And also, I'll just point out, one of the reasons this is kind of like a dream event for me is that there's, all the events there. They take, many days to do. And being Orthodox, observant Jewish, like if an event stretches into Friday night or is on Saturday, I can't do that. So I know that here's one guy on the podcast who's guaranteed never going to win the main event because I just won't be playing on a Saturday or Friday.
Right.
So in a sense, this for me is my main event. It starts on a Monday, and hopefully I'll still be there Wednesday at the final table, and that'd be amazing. But really looking forward to playing.
That's super awesome that you get to play. Are you still going to be working some of it, or are you off? You're not working at all this summer?
Well, the nice thing about being self-employed is I get to decide, which is really awesome. And it's a real big blessing. It's like, there's obviously some risks of doing that. You never know what's going to be the next month, but it's up to me. And thankfully I've got, again, back to the first thing I said, best wife in the world. And she's been really cool. And, it's about 7,500 miles away, and my 3 kids are here just with her. So it's major credit to her that she's been very kind and awesome and being cool with me going. This will be my 4th summer in a row for lengthy periods of time. I know whenever you live in the States, you're just a few hours away. You can go and come back multiple times during the series. Ain't so simple when you're living 10 time zones away from, and it's the end of the school year and to be there for all the kids' stuff. So I'll be making 2 trips out this year, actually. One is at the beginning from end of May until the beginning of June, and that's when I'll be playing in the Dealer's Choice event. And that's more of I'll be doing my own thing as far as work stuff is concerned. Be meeting up with the RecChip poker guys. They've got some meetups going on, maybe doing some stuff with Ellie. We'll have to see exactly what develops in that respect. And the second, then I'll be coming back home for about 3.5 weeks or so. And then I go back out and I'll be working with the poker productions crew during the main events. I have been doing this for this will be my 3rd year, being on the player bio team. This is, when you see the broadcast online on ESPN, all of the very talented commentators are telling you all about the players at the table. So, that information has to come from somewhere. So I'm part of a exceptional team who we really work hard. We stand there with the bulletin boards, the clipboards, and try to get the information from the players during the breaks. Tell them about, tell us about themselves, and also researching on their Hendon mob and whatever information we could find, and passing that information along to the broadcasters so that they can relay it to the viewing audience at home. So yeah, 2 trips
very
out
cool,
to the
man.
Yeah,
there's so much behind the scenes that that we just don't see, and it's cool to kind of hear a little bit of the skinny on what's actually going on there. I'm curious. Obviously you're very well educated, you're very well spoken, you've got a lot of passion. It seems like you could do a lot of different things. You could do a lot of different things in media, but you've chosen to cover poker. You know, I'm curious, like, what is it about covering poker? What is it about, you know, your deep engagement in the game and kind of behind the scenes? Like, what is it that's kind of driving you or fueling you or giving you life or, you know, keeping your passion strong? Like, what is it about, you know, your work in the poker community that makes it more than just a job?
That is a great question. Very well worded, and thanks for that question. So, any question that makes you think and you don't have an instant answer, so it's a really good question.
I know that had nothing to do with the questions I sent you in advance, and we'll probably never get to those questions. That's what I mean. We'll kind of play it by ear and kind of see where it goes. But yeah, those are questions I love to ask people, the ones that kind of make you reflect a little bit on it.
I think to an extent, it really just is the passion. You know, like the fact is, you know, something that you really love to do, you're going to do anyway, regardless of whatever the reactions to it are, regardless of what happens as a result of you doing it. You know, when I first started my blog, you know, I was excited that 10 people were visiting it in a day, you know, and, you know, if I got into it to make money or to try and make a career out of it, I would have stopped after 3 days, maybe 2 days. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just something, because, you know, it's something that you enjoy. You just sort of do it more. And the fact is also, look, I love the game of poker. I really, really do. I realized very quickly, you know, winning player though I might be, being a professional poker player doesn't really jive with the type of lifestyle that I want to lead. And, you know, it's important to me. I moved here 20 years ago to Israel for a very good reason. I believe that this is, you know, the Jewish homeland and this is where I belong. You know, it's type of thing we always say. There's lots of aquariums out there in the world, but there's only one ocean. So there's plenty of good Jewish communities, you know, all over the place. But I think that this is where we belong. So this is where I want to live. But a professional poker player to be living here, not so simple always. And I said, well, how do I still stay involved? And, you know, the fact that I've got all of these different avenues, whether it's in podcast form or on my website or in any other sort of avenues as far as the media is related, and able to go from time to time now over these last couple of years to Las Vegas, to different other venues all over the world, and do media coverage and use the types of things, you know, that I studied. I studied linguistics and used whatever skills I've managed to develop, allows me to live that card player lifestyle, you know, without necessarily being a professional player. Just, you know, I still got my home game, and, you know, this is the type of thing that I love. And I'm just, you know, it didn't happen overnight. A lot of people say, okay, you're doing all this, you're doing that. Wow, it's amazing. And it is, it really is. And, you know, I feel incredibly fortunate. It did not happen overnight. It's the type of thing that, you know, thankfully the passion is what kept me up those nights and weekends till 2, 3, 4 in the morning and saying, well, I've got to get this interview out. And Mary's like, no, you got to sleep. You have work tomorrow. I'm like, I agree, but I'll just be a little bit more tired. You know, I don't care. That's what's important to me. And
it's kind of the pushing the flywheel, like Jim Collins talks about, if you're familiar with Good to Great, right? I mean, that the overnight successes are never overnight successes. There's overnight being noticed.
Yes.
But there's always the years and years of kind of pushing the flywheel and doing what it takes to kind of get there. And
sure. And in a sense, it mirrors, like, you know, at least for a tournament poker player's graph, you know, so lots of times you look at the typical graph of a winning player. So you've got, like, you know, like the sort of staying steady, a little up, little down, then you have the big win. And then you're just at a new plateau and all that other sort of stuff. And, you know, that really speaks to me as far as my career has gone, because, you know, a lot of it has just been, you know, not necessarily as rewarding in the conventional sense. And then all of a sudden, you know, Nolan Dalla, you know, one of the chief scribes, the massive media presence, went ahead and said, hey, Robbie, I want you to be one of my firing squad interviews. Whoa, holy crap, that happens. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, who's this Robbie Strazynski guy? And then, you know, you move on to the next thing and the next thing. But, like, I just remember that was just a huge moment. Or, you know, back to Chris Wallace, the first time you ever get on a podcast. So one thing I could just tell everybody is, you know, if you do have the passion, if you do want to do whatever it is that you want to do, any single opportunity from anyone that comes your way, grab it with both hands and make the absolute most of it. And to the, you know, even to point, Steve, you said, would you like to be on the podcast? Absolutely, you want to be on the podcast. We'll talk for as long as you want, you know, and happy to do anything like that, because you never know who's listening, who's watching, and, you know, other opportunities can continue from there, you know, like, and it's not necessarily money related. It's, you know, but sometimes there are. Some guy was like, hey, I just saw the interview you did with so-and-so. We'd like to hire you to do this, you know, like, okay. And from that, thankfully, self-employment came 2 years ago, and the ability to make a living at the end of the day, which is really living the dream. Thank God.
Congrats. Yeah, congrats. Hey, John, did you have something there?
Yeah, I was just gonna to mention, I've been really impressed actually by both you, Robbie, and you, Steve. There are not very many people entering the poker industry after Black Friday. So to be able to do that and to be able to have, I've watched you, I remember you talking on podcasts about deciding to make it a full-time career, and when you started to switch over and do more and more. And Steve's been doing the same thing, making poker part of his income, and with a similar bent to you, where playing is, portion, and he hopes to be profitable there, but that's actually not where he's currently making his income from. So I've just been really impressed watching that, and I think it's really good to be getting new blood that's not jaded by Black Friday, into the poker industry, and seeing it continue to grow, even though it's a different path. It's probably more healthy and more sustainable than the growth rate poker had prior to that anyway.
Well, thanks, John. That's generous. Yeah, and in my defense, I didn't even know there was a Black Friday until I started playing poker and then heard stories about it. So I'm pretty new to the poker scene, but I appreciate the kind words, John.
And I can say on my side, I think in retrospect, it's pretty cool and probably beneficial to me that I didn't get in earlier than I did. I've spoken to some people who had gone through the whole Black Friday, and part of me says, oh man, those were the glory days. That's when, all you had to do is say you had a poker blog and people were handing you bags of money to, put a banner up, right? Like, wouldn't that be amazing to be making money like that? But a lot of people, unfortunately, they said, well, that's not happening anymore. I got to find ways to go ahead and keep making money, whatever it is. And I understand that, a Black Friday could ruin their business and things get difficult. Like to soldier through, passion notwithstanding, something of that magnitude is not so simple. So in a sense, it was a blessing for me that I got in the low point of poker. And, I know exactly what Black Friday did to everybody, but, for me, thankfully, it's just sort of been a constant trajectory upwards, because when you start from nowhere, there's only one place to go. So in a sense, that's pretty cool, and definitely not jaded. And I think also to an extent, the fact that I live here in Israel, so far away from where all the poker action is happening around the world, it enables each time that I take a trip abroad to be exciting all over again. So that's something I think, that it worked out in my favor. So that's pretty awesome.
So Robbie, as you kind of think about you've covered so many players, you've covered so many tournaments, so many different things. You're a bright guy. You kind of understand human behavior and motivation, it sounds like, as well. I'm kind of curious, as you look at players, what are some of those like common traits that you see among the best players, whether it's strategy, whether it's emotional well-being, physical well-being, whether it's their demeanor? I mean, can you even draw any sort of inferences or themes among what seems to be common among the top players, or among, I guess, players that are continually getting better, or, specifically maybe around tournaments? But have you thought about that? Have you drawn any insights there?
Yeah, it becomes clear after a while. There's a common denominator. It's the ability to hit two outers.
Right. Dang it! I gotta practice.
Not everyone has that ability. I gotta tell you, someone I've been playing home games with never manages to get there. So,
and the other guy always gets there, right? I lose 95% of the time I'm ahead on the river, right?
Right, exactly. It's the ability to say one time and have it work, Steve.
Have it work, or to start walking away from the table when your card hits.
Yes, to put on your jacket. That's how you hit them. In all seriousness, though, it's sort of relating to the types of things we said. But with anything, you want to be successful, you just got to work at it. And the ones who are really reaching like the highest levels of success, and managing to go up in stakes and play in those high rollers, it doesn't happen by accident. It's the same thing. Like, you see the results, but you don't see them sitting in the lab, quote unquote, and reviewing all of those charts and numbers. And, back in the day before solvers and before poker got, so numbers oriented with all of the charts and the software and all these sorts of things, Daniel Negreanu talks about it. He was just talking with his up and coming poker buddies, with Phil Ivey, with John Juanda, with Alan Cunningham, and talking hands. These are the brightest minds of their generation, and just going over, what would you do in this spot? What would you do in that spot? And remembering those sort of things. So they worked on their game too. A lot of it was much more play-based, and then, focus and analysis after the fact. But, now with the numbers, with the software, with so much training material out there. I mean, I put out, not that I write them all, but again, from my contributors, bunches of strategy articles. There's tons of free strategy articles available all over the internet. Poker News has got tons of them. And you listen to podcasts such as yours at the RecPoker podcast, and hear what do you call it, strategy discussions. So there's all of that. And then, if you want to go ahead and really take it seriously, yeah. So it's not that you're spending money to learn, you're investing in yourself. And you're paying money to all of the different great poker training companies out there to go ahead and teach you. These are winning players, winning coaches. And, I don't think there's necessarily one way, it's math is absolute, but I don't think there's one way towards achieving success. You got to play what's good for you. If you feel Hold'em is a solved game, then the people who are making money hand over fist right now, they're focusing on, 7-card stud high low, because
right.
At the highest limits, there's not too much material about that game that's out there that is necessarily solved. So, game selection is very important. So they're going ahead and doing that. You can have the 8th, what did it say? Doyle says, or someone said, if you have the 9th best poker player in the world sitting down at the same table as the other 8, he ain't going to win a penny, right? So game selection is very important, and putting in the time and the effort to be better. If it matters that much to you to be the best, then you're going to do everything you can to be the best. And yeah, variance will do what it does, but that type of determination and grit in the long term will get you at the higher stakes and at the nosebleed tables.
Well said. Well, we're man, time just flies by. It's crazy how fast time goes. We're almost out of time, but I want to give John.
That's it.
Yeah, I know. I want to give John or Chad a chance to. I've been doing most of the talking with you, Robbie. I want to give those guys a chance again if they have anything to ask or to chime in on.
Well, I just want to say once again, congratulations on the award last night.
Thank you, Chen.
Didn't see that, and the great work that you do, and there's this hashtag that goes around, good for poker, and you're good for poker, and that's just known across the board. You talk to anybody and mention your name in the poker industry, and everyone smiles, and that's what happens. You do a lot of great work, and you are a good friend to all of us, and maybe this summer, I believe Steve is going to be this area at the same time you are going to be there, not working.
Awesome.
And maybe I'll get out there too, and we can all sit down at the same table and play some mixed games, maybe.
Oh, that sounds awesome. That's really sweet of you to say, Chad. And I got to say also, there's lots of different things to be motivated by. And I think, you don't necessarily do it for money. You don't do it for accolades, but this is the type of thing, I got to be honest, that definitely keeps me going. Like when I said 10 fans wanted to go ahead and see it, on that first day, having someone, again, like Chad, and I'm never going to say this type of thing enough. Anyone who says something like that to me means okay, I'm going to keep on going and sitting till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and continuing to do what I do, because it matters, at least to some people. So I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Thanks,
yeah,
Chad.
and I just
John?
probably say ditto. Chad.
Well said, sir.
It's really important to a lot of the pros that are still around from 2000. They come off very jaded, and they've been through some tough times, from it being so good to being brought down after Black Friday, and to hear the genuine enthusiasm about the game, I think is really important. And I will be in Las Vegas at the same time Steve is, so hopefully we'll get a chance to actually meet.
I hope so too, John. It sounds like it'd be a really fun, real fun game. And beer's on me. I don't drink them, but I'll have a Diet Coke, and beer's on me if we do meet up. That'd be wonderful.
That would be awesome. Yeah, John and I are going out there on June 9th. So if there's any overlap at all, we can connect. That would be super fun. So almost out of time. I have one more question I would like to ask you, and this could be a really quick answer.
Man, I'm not good at quick answers. That's my life.
I'm gathering that, but that's okay. You're good at thorough answers, but this is a list. So the three most interesting people or players that you've run across in the poker industry.
Oh, that's not fair.
Well, it doesn't have to be the top three. Give me three names of people that you just find fascinating for some reason or another. You don't even have to give the reasons. I'm putting you totally on the spot right now. And now this is what I call stalling, so you can actually think. I'm pretending I'm actually giving a thought, but what I'm actually doing is just kind of rambling to give you time to think. If that's not fair, give me one name. Like who's like super interesting that's out there.
So many interesting bits. Okay, I don't want to put three people out there. Okay, but I'll give you an answer which sort of would give my methodology if I were to give you names of people.
Okay, so you can answer the question that you hope I'd asked.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
You're going to answer the question that you hoped I'd asked.
Okay, so generally speaking, I interview a lot of people. So there's got to be something that intangible that makes me want to interview that person in the first place, right? So there's that. Okay, I can't necessarily put my finger on what it is, but something makes me want to go ahead and say, okay, I want to interview you. And then I'm going to go ahead and spend a lot of time, anyone could put a list of questions together, but I really do try hard to spend, time researching and finding out more about this person. And especially if they've been interviewed many times, not just ask the same questions, but try to go deeper, because I feel that when you do that and you're able to ask good questions, everyone's got a story. Everyone can be interesting. So it's very difficult on the spot to pick three people, but I can tell you that there are a lot of people over the years who I have interviewed and who I've put the time in to come up with some questions that some amazing answers that I wouldn't have expected, or, that even people who have known those interviewees for many years didn't know about them. So hopefully that's a good enough answer for the question that you almost asked.
It's a very good answer. It makes me wish you could move back to the U.S. and run for political office.
Oh, no.
Giving that sort of answer. No, that's great. I want to honor your time. I know people can reach you. There's several Twitter accounts at Card Player Life, at Poker Notes Live, where the app is, at RecChip Poker, and at Top Pair. Are there other ways or other preferred ways that you'd have people connect? Do you have an email, newsletter, or anything like that you want people to know about?
Just keep calling my phone all the time.
Right. And telling you bad beat stories, is that what you prefer?
I love bad beat stories. There was a guy who took my idea, SOB, he's wearing a cardboard, like $1 for your bad beat stories. And I was like, that's how I was going to make money last summer.
Right. You could charge 20 probably.
Right. No, the Twitter, at Card Player Life is the best way. I've got a Card Player Lifestyle Poker that's on Facebook you can reach. And no hesitation about giving out my email address. It's Robbie, ROBBIE, at cardplayerlifestyle.com. And in general, just everyone likes having their name in lights in the spotlight for even a few minutes. Anyone who takes the time to go ahead and email me, there's never been anyone who hasn't gotten a response back, even if it's no, not interested or whatever. But always happy to hear from anybody about anything and have conversations with you guys. So thank you.
Well, awesome. Well, it truly was a pleasure to actually meet you too, after seeing your name out there, and just love what you're doing. I love how you're approaching life. And kind of how you have your framework and paradigm and perspective of life fully intact, and then kind of working around the periphery. I appreciate that about you. And man, best of luck with everything, with the family, with the home in Israel there, with this summer playing and reporting, and everything else you have going on. But a true pleasure to meet you, sir.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's nice to have the opportunity. I haven't been on a podcast in a while on the other side of the mic, so thank you very much for the opportunity, for your time. It's not about my time only, but it's really nice to have an opportunity like this and be acknowledged and appreciated. Thank you very much, and thank you, Chad, and to John as well. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys, for joining, and we'll be in touch. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks so much to Robbie. Thanks to Chad and John for being part of kind of the last minute
panel putting that interview together. Thanks to Running Aces for your sponsorship of the RecPoker podcast. Please check out RecPokerTraining.com for any information. You can sign up for our newsletter there. Get all kinds of info on things that we're offering. You can also watch the videos and listen to the podcasts out there online as well. So until next week, I guess that's it. Good luck on the felt.